Now the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared to blow them. The first angel blew his trumpet, and there followed hail and fire mixed with blood, and these were thrown upon the earth. And a third of the earth was burned up, and a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. The second angel blew his trumpet, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and a third of the fire became blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. The third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven, blazing like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many people died from the water because it had been made bitter. The fourth angel blew his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of their light might be darkened, and a third of the day might be kept from shining, and likewise a third of the night. And then I looked, and I heard an eagle crying with a loud voice as it flew directly overhead, "Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth at the blast of the other trumpets that the 3 angels are about to blow." And the 5th angel blew his trumpet, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth, and he was given the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. He opened the shaft of the bottomless pit, and from the shaft rose smoke like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened with the smoke from the shaft. And then the smoke came locusts and on the earth, and they were given power like that of a scorpion. In a previous storyboard, we considered the symbolic seals in the book of Revelation, chapter 6. And now we turn to the sound of trumpets in the chapters 8 through 9 of the same book. This begins the intersection of sight and sound. We first see the breaking of the seals. Now we are introduced to a sequence of events by the sounds of trumpets. In effect, these events are overlapping. They are 2 sides of the same coin. Just like thunder, its predecessor lightning, will pierce our sights and is followed by an inescapable quaking sound that can cause reverberations through the entire house. Isn't this the same with a woman who's pregnant before birth? An onlooker will see her 8-9 months pregnant and suspect that the term is drawing near. People will ask, "When is your due date?" But it's not until we hear the groans of birth pains as they reverberate through everything in earshot that we know for certain the time has come. The necessity of audible force. Sound is a powerful form of energy. It can be used to dismantle or to bind up. We use ultrasonic waves to clean what solvents cannot. Think about this. Even absent any knowledge about industrial metal cleaning, we all brush our teeth and floss, hopefully daily. But despite our brushing with paste and flossing daily, we go to the dentist and they accomplish more in an hour with an ultrasonic tool than we're able to ever do at home. They completely break off all the tartar, and you run your tongue along your shiny, polished teeth, and you feel like a new person. This is what ultrasonic waves do. They can even disintegrate metal, sometimes intentionally, but it's due to the cavitation effects. So you can see boat propellers will have kind of an erosion at the edge of the blades. This is because they're creating these micro vacuum bubbles that cause pressure differentials, and when the bubbles collapse, there's this instantaneous rise in temperature. And that brief high temperature over time erodes the metal. This is sound. The biblical story of the walls of Jericho is likely a hat tip to this law of physics. Purification and dismantling are not exclusive utilities of sound. In recent research around DNA, scientists explored light absorption following sound stimulation. Audible sound waves at 528 hertz were played from a diversity of music genres and were found to create resonance in DNA with healing effects. And in that day, a great trumpet will be blown, and those who were lost in the land of Assyria and those who were driven out to the land of Egypt will come and worship the Lord on the holy mountain at Jerusalem. Isaiah 27:13. And again, all you inhabitants of the world, you who dwell on the earth, when a signal is raised, look, when a trumpet is blown, hear. Isaiah 18. The blare from the angel's trumpet propagates waves through the universe, propelling celestial bodies composed of ice, fire, iron, and oxygen towards Earth's atmosphere. But are these weapons of heavenly hosts advanced technology from extraterrestrial intelligence? Are they devices of our own making? Do they originate as mere space dust kicked up by some unforeseen cataclysmic cosmic event? Looking at the birth rings of celestial weaponry, we have what is commonly identified as the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter in the inner solar system. And we have the Kuiper belt of the outer solar system just beyond Pluto. There's also the Oort cloud, even further out, as it's the shell surrounding everything else in between. But relatively unknown is a fourth ring of cosmic debris situated between the gas giants Saturn and Neptune. This region of space is the birthplace of centaurs. That's right, half horse, half man. And this is because they're a hybrid of the different celestial compositional bodies that we find in each of the predominant belts of debris. We can look to the compositional makeup of an object in space to gain some understanding of where it came from, how it was formed, how it will behave, and hopefully predict where these cosmic weapons are headed. So asteroids are primarily made of rock, but comets are more complex, being made of a mix of ice, rock, and variable gases. It is actually because of the way they are put together that as they get closer to the sun, the ice and dust begins to melt, which gives that beautiful tail we infamously see in the sky. Centaurs, however, appear to be a hybrid of both in that they're ordinarily closer to the sun than the Kuiper belt objects, but they can have qualities of outer space debris. So even though they're primarily rock, they can be seen possessing other elements than what we would typically see within the asteroid belt. And then, of course, within these primary space rocks, the centaurs, the asteroids, and the comets, we have a subclassification system based on their individual sizes, types, and orbit characteristics. A long time ago, in a city named Sodom, there was a perplexing catastrophe. In a single day, it was destroyed by hail and fire raining from the skies. Modern archaeological evidence has shown that this, what was previously considered a myth of biblical proportions in the Old Testament, has actually some measurable validity. And in 2021, much of this data was published. Experts failed to ever find a crater at the site in Jordan, so they attributed the damage to the city from an airburst that would have been created when a meteor came through Earth's atmosphere at a high rate of speed. It would have exploded about 2 to 3 miles above the city in a blast that is 100 times more powerful than the atomic bomb at Hiroshima, writes Christopher Moore, an archaeologist at the University of Southern Carolina. Air temperatures would rapidly rise, possibly over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Instantaneously, everything would be burned up. And this is the most likely situation we have for the first trumpet in the book of Revelation. If it can happen once, it can happen again. And if it can happen localized over a very small region, then there's no reason to disprove its potential to happen over lots of places around the globe. And then, with a great resonant force, a centaur was awakened from its slumber as something like a great mountain came racing towards Earth. Do volcanoes exist in space? Well, yes, they do. But is this what we're looking at with the second trumpet? Something like a great mountain burning with fires thrown into the sea. Cosmic radiation poses a risk to Earth's inhabitants and water supply in a number of ways. In the third angel's trumpet, we see wormwood, which is a bitter tasting plant. It's toxic to the liver, and this is likened to radiation exposure. So, small asteroids can cause radiation poisoning locally through direct inoculation at a surface impact. Earth's continents are made up of celestial dust from eons prior, which means that deep within our crust is radioactive material. As these materials decay, they generally do not cause issues in small quantities, even if they seep into aquifers. But an increase in exposure to the radioactive decay in the Earth's crust can be turned up in a number of ways. One of the most common at present is through stressors to the bedrock via earthquakes, either man-made or naturally occurring. Industrial activities are taking place all over the globe that involve cracking into the bedrock, just like fracking, where radioactive elements naturally exist. And this increase exposes inhabitants of those areas to increasing radiation. What's more is because of their natural presence, we don't always know when they seep into aquifers at increased rates until we see the fallout. Outside of these two immediate causes of an increase in radiation exposure on Earth or pollution to water supplies, a supernova poses risks that would look just like a blazing star falling. And what would it take for considerable gamma radiation from space to penetrate the Earth's atmosphere? Well, the consensus is not universal, but the math estimates that a supernova would have to be within 100 to 160 light years from Earth to cause damaging effects in varying degrees. We've had 3 supernovas that are notably documented from, I think, 1054 to the most recent in 1987. But let's look at a hypothetical scenario where we have a supernova, say 30 light years from Earth's atmosphere. As astrophysicist Mark Reed predicts, X-rays and more energetic gamma radiation from the supernova could destroy the ozone layer that protects us from solar ultraviolet rays. It could also ionize nitrogen and oxygen in our atmosphere, leading to the formation of large amounts of smog like nitrous oxide. What's more, if a supernova exploded within 30 light years, phytoplankton and reef communities would be particularly affected. Such an event would severely deplete the base of the ocean's food chain. End quote. This is our picture of radiation damage in our oceans and water supplies on the Earth. But no supernova has been known to erupt within 100 light years, at least in our history of humankind. Like I said, the most recent supernova visible to the human eye was in 1987. It was approximately 168,000 light years away. But the star IK Pegasi b is the nearest known supernova progenitor candidate on the horizon. It's part of a binary system located about 150 light years from our sun and solar system. In the sounding of the fourth trumpet, an announcement is made to charge on our relationship to the sun. In order for Earth to lose a third of its day, making a 16-hour day the new norm, we need a disruptive event to our axis and or our rotation. The science behind this is detailed in another storyboard coming soon, but for now I will provide you with this rudimentary diagram of an axis shift whereby we go from 23 degrees to roughly 46 degrees. A change of Earth's axis of this magnitude would equate to shorter days and longer, if not non existent, seasons for much of the planet. There are a handful of events that could create a scenario like this, the most likely being a disruption to our tidal lock with the moon. As the distance increases between Earth and the moon, so does our proclivity to tilt further on our axis. And a disruption to what we know as the distance and tidal lock scenario that Earth has existed with could be caused by any number of things, whether asteroid impacts to the moon itself or remnants of a supernova interfering with the path and the moon's orbit. We have a number of theories that astrophysics and cosmology afford us based on observations from previous events in the universe and theoretical models for future events, which we detail in another storyboard. But suffice it to say, it's not that improbable that Earth's axis will see a shift. And much of the discussion about the pole reversals will only be one aspect of that. Trumpets 1 through 4 comprise the first woe of the book of Revelation, chapters 8 through 9 of the seven trumpets. This concludes part 1. Part 2 with trumpets 5 through 7 is soon to follow. So I encourage you to hit subscribe, hit the like button for notifications about the release of the second part of this series of the storyboard for the trumpets. It gets really interesting. And if you've been following all of the signs and wonders with the eclipse and the comets, then you will definitely want to be tuned in for the second part of this as we unpack the locusts and the more cataclysmic events in our cosmos. So I hope to hear from you. See you there. Comment below if you have any questions. We will start a live podcast on Sunday nights unpacking text that we just won't be able to get to in these visual storyboards.